Is this a performance EV that could convince true petrolheads? And why is Porsche observing this vehicle and wants to take a feature and make it their own? We're going to find out, and I honestly gotta tell you, I was skeptic at first too, but then I drove this one and I was blown away. You have to watch this driving party today. Super interesting with the N model, the Hyundai Ioniq 6N, and we're going to drive this performance car here for you today with Thomas Nautical Fuel in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go in the typical bright blue Hyundai N color design here. Then the red accentuations in the lower part, and you know there's the normal Ioniq 6, this one here, the N model. In the peak, 650 horsepower, has a launch control, has the N grin button, 10 seconds overboost, so to speak. And here a length of 4.94 m or 194 inches. Standard 20-inch wheels here in the black design, really sporty, bigger brakes and so on. And this stretched roofline, you know there's the brother, the Ioniq 5N, the hatch design. This one here, the sedan or the falling roofline design. And with a huge fixed rear wing. It's still a separate trunk. We're soon going to show you the trunk. Yeah, a lot of pollen here already at the car. Not sure if you see that, although the car was perfectly clean. And then you have this huge diffuser design here in the lower part, and always with this dot design, which also stands for Morse code than for Hyundai. Yeah, very interesting, very striking. It really splits in love and hate. Two electric motors, one in the rear, one in the front. The rear one has more horsepower, like 2/3, 1/3. However, if you look at the Newton meter figures, when you really push it through, then it's just slightly rear wheel biased. When you really hit it down, then it's just like a little bit more Newton meters for the rear. Battery at 84 kilowatt hours. So we'll see about the real world range also, because we're doing a sporty driving test, but also a range test on the motorway for you. And you can quickly recharge from 10 to 80% in 18 minutes, 800 volt architecture, 11 kilowatt AC charging. There's the DC charger here, and then with the electric charging flap. So it basically ticks a lot of boxes. In comparison to the Ioniq 5, here with the Ioniq 6N, they have also a lower center of gravity. They did additional rigidity measures actually, so they say they also worked on the suspension, and it's supposed to drive even better than the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. So I'm really looking forward to how that translates to. And yeah, you already heard it in the beginning with this special sound emulation, and I can tell you, it really, really works astonishingly. You get the ECS suspension, electronically controlled, so that means when you're in the N mode, it also gets a little bit stiffer from suspension, and acceleration figures depends on 3.4 seconds, 3.3 seconds with the N grin button with the extra boost, and 3.2 seconds then with the launch control. That's what I took from this logic. So it really depends, but it's extremely quick, and also the VMAX is off the charts. 260 kilometers an hour. And then, is there a Frunk? Let's see. I mean, this car has a sound emulation, a shifting emulation. It also has an engine emulation because it has no Frunk. So there's the cover, and they use then the space all behind it for the electric motor and the 12-volt battery and so on. So yeah, no Frunk there is. And what a nice setup we have here for you. We brought the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, that you can see the comparison, the classic hatch model. Of course, it's a little bit shorter, a little bit more angular though, especially already in the front, for example. Then see here the side profile, higher but shorter. In this case, also 21-inch wheels, so even more massive as for that. Tell me in the comments if you rather like this stretched sedan style or the hatch style. In the rear, I have to say, I like the Ioniq 5N better. It has this retro tech look, a little bit like this, but yet again, yeah, the spoiler is more massive with the Ioniq 6, so definitely matter of preference. Tell me in the comments. Oh, at the moment I see some stars, because Leah has an umbrella, because it started to rain now a little bit, and then when I got up, I got hit with the umbrella, so I see some beautiful stars now. Anyways, let's continue with the review, where the key fob looks like, it has an N logo, but I would say it looks like a toy. Anyways, let's open the vehicle. Yes, with the flush door handles, but then they are physical like this. Very interesting, and it feels actually quite good. Although I'm more a fan of the classic door handles here. Very good door closing sound. That's nice. And let's see, inside of the doors is all clean. It's also soft touch here, then microfiber. And this is basically all the grab handle, how you close the door, because the window levers are on the inside. And so here's everything clean, good quality also here behind, for example, the handle. Just the lower part is very slim and also hard pack. Then here checkered flag, entry badge and a nice N floor mat. So that looks fancy. And here, also checkered flag for the pedal design here, left for your feet, and also the pedals itself, checkered flag design. Then these special sports bucket seats. Base would be fabric on the inside, and optionally you can get microfiber on the inside, and then they are also cooled and heated. You also have a illuminated N badge right there. The only thing I don't understand is microfiber on the inside, and then outside is a mix. Some parts are animal skin, some parts are leatherette, and you don't really know which parts are which. And they could have easily made this car animal free without losing anything, you know. So I think this is like one missed chance. Then here the comfort, to me, they are quite uncomfortable. They are stiff sport seats. Sometimes sport seats are very comfortable as well, but here they hold you tight, great for racing. But when you're tall, they're really not that comfortable long term. So the normal Ioniq 6 model would be more comfortable, definitely. But this one here then, you know, to keep you tight, you know. They're also not that low for bucket seats. They're actually relatively high, I would say, in comparison. Could be worse. The microfiber material, this one is really nice. And the rest of the build quality is really awesome. And there are a lot of fun things to come now. And by the way, another fun thing is when you shut down the vehicle, wait for it. Yeah, like a rockstar, yo. And the headroom here with 1A9, 6'2", still enough headroom left, and well, it's a beautiful covering from the inside. You could also get a panoramic roof for this one, but Hyundai N does not recommend it because of the weight and so on, you know. Welcome here to the cockpit of the Hyundai Ioniq 6N, and very impressive. Of course, the most obvious thing is this steering wheel here with a lot of controls, real buttons, for example, left side cruise control, also to control the digital instruments. Then drive mode selector for the normal driving modes is here. So here I can set the normal driving modes, normal, eco, sport and so on. Then on the other side, the NGB, the N grin button. So I press this one while driving, and then I have 10 seconds of extra boost to really get this 650 horsepower out of this vehicle. Of course, you should only make it in a safe environment, or maybe like when all the way is free on the Autobahn or maybe on the racetrack and so on. So be careful with that, definitely. And then I have two N buttons. So left side, there's the N driving mode, stiffer suspension, everything set to sport. And then here I can set the second N button, this one here, for example, to, you already hear it, the sound emulation, and also the manual shifting, which is a software emulation as well. So now I can hear then. Do you hear that from the rear? I think we can hear that on camera, right? Maybe I can, here also, I'll put the microphone now in the direction to the rear, and you maybe just, yeah, I'll take it slowly to Leah, and now.
But it's cool.
It's funny, but the sound is very well emulate. So, and you'll see how it works in driving very soon. You can also put this sound emulation for the normal driving mode. That is possible. It's not as loud as it is here in the special N mode. Yeah, but you can play around with that a lot. And then in this special manual shifting mode, you can then hear manual shift yourself. Other than that, the shifting pedals are then the recuperation setting, 1, 2, 3, I pedal and so on. This is possible. And then here, this is then for the, like putting in the gear, actually, the D, N and reverse. And you can see here, when I sit here, for me is a problem, you know, with the knees. So if you're taller and sit more backward, then it's not a problem. If you're not as tall as me, maybe not so, but especially for my size here, I'm really close with my knee here to the gear selector. And also because I don't want to put the steering wheel. Could be higher. Could be, you know, like more, there we go, more in and out, so that's possible actually, but that it doesn't annoy me, I would need to put it too high for driving. So for me it is a problem, but it doesn't mean it's a problem for everyone. Nice that we also have here the bright, like that, I guess, baby blue mark here for the 12 o'clock position. That's pretty cool. There's also a nicely visible head-up display, for example. Wiper selection here with a separate lever, and then 2 times 12.3 inch instruments, and also here the infotainment. I feel they have also made the infotainment a little bit quicker now. And then here, the controls for the vents, for example, good quality. The dashboard here is not that soft, but it's still nicely structured. Then we have this decor element right there. The glove box here is not that small, actually goes quite deep in there. Then we have a button here for the tunes, some hotkeys right there for the volume jog. However, the climate unit itself, that is all digital here, and for the fan speed, it's easily reachable, although I would have preferred it manually. 2 USB-C chargers, even 100 watt. Inductive charging pad is not ventilated though, so the phone does heat there. I love the separate buttons here for seat heating and seat cooling. So this is easy to reach, classic control. Window levers here are on the inside each. And, you were surprised now. But that keeps the door clean then, so to speak. And then here, cup holders are also in this 2-dot design, adaptive. Underneath this console here, there's also still space. I also took an extra shot of that. So you can also put stuff in there. Microfiber cover here. Oops, bless you. Yeah, you see, it started to rain outside, so we have to be careful about our health as well. Then here, microfiber is nice, but it could be a little bit softer for the elbow. And then underneath there is also more space. So overall, a very attractive cockpit. They have also very good build quality. I like that. And yeah, especially the steering wheel looks really impressive, and it looks maybe a little bit overload at first, but the real buttons really help. And then you know, like, okay, which button does what, and then you can, easily fine tune that. And looking again closely to the digital instruments, you can also see how they change according. For example, here in the normal driving mode, this looks, not that spectacular, but then when you're in the N mode, it switches to this view and it looks kind of combustion engine alike. And then in the manual shifting mode, it looks then like this, and then you can once again tune up. Even up to the ref limiter. This is, by the way, when you put the seat all the way backward, and Leah has a lot of space there in the front, when only the front passenger seat is occupied. Actually, she found also here in the front, in the sun blind, is nicely covered with the soft microfiber, so it's also good build quality here. And there, look at that, ta-da! You can also extend that. So they also thought of that. Not many options. Well, the sunroof would be an option, and here the microfiber seats, and that's basically it. Colors, and that's it. Now to the rear seating area here. This is also soft touch at the inside of the doors, and I can show that on the other side. So there's also ambient lighting behind this. Then the microfiber, so it's beautifully done. Then you also have here the seat heating for the rear seats, and this is also with the lamination here in the rear. This is also standard for the Ioniq 6N. And even more so, the build quality. It's really excellent. Even here, the door handle is nice. And behind that, I can feel it. There's like a metal knurling galvanization behind this handle here. So this is really high class. Just hardback in the lower part, gotta say that. Then you have Isofix outside each, and also have the nice microfiber here on the middle part. This should be all leather red then. And then here, cup holders, they are not adaptive though. You cannot fold the seats from here. We will experience that then in the trunk area, what you can do right there. And you have the even floor here, using that EV platform, of course. 2 USB-C chargers, 100 watt. That is, of course, massively powerful. And we also have a small light in here. Then headroom with 1A9642. I do hit my head when I lean backwards, so I have to lean a little bit forward like this, like a little bit Quasimodo style. So here then with 1A9642, that's okay. But when I lean backward, doesn't really work. It's this, you know, stretched, falling roofline. But look at that, like what the hell? Look at that legroom, you know. So, I mean, these seats here are, in this case, helping because they are kind of, you know, slim. So this massive amounts of legroom. Yes, EV sedan, that's why you see my feet are standing relatively high, and that's why this angle. But it's still fine because I have so much space here. But of course, it would be more comfortable when my feet would be, you know, would be a little bit lower actually. But since you have much space in the length here, you can somehow arrange yourself. But as we know from EV sedans, is often not that ideal. Let's take it that way. Yeah, so can be better positions, but at least you have a lot of space and the material finish and the quality is really nice. Now the trunk or the boot at 370 liters. Electric hatch here, although it's just a typical sedan opening. This one still fits underneath. And then we have here width of 1.40 meters in this area, and then it gets a little bit closer here, and you can see here there is this additional stability measure, so you can fold the seats 2/3, 1/3. You have to unleash it here basically. And then here the normal length is about 1.10 meters, 43 inches, and then, well, here in this area you can load something through from IKEA or something like that. So, and then it's hard to see. Then like, there we go to the seat as we were driving. Yeah, wow, almost a full ruler. So there's like 1.95 meters or 77 inches. So it's a very, very long car, definitely. The only limitation here, of course, the height, which is at 18 centimeters. No, sorry, about 17.5 inches or 44 centimeters. Underneath here, there's just, yeah, not much space, not much to see right here. So yeah, definitely here the limitation there, the Ioniq 5N would be more practical, but it's a super long one, and yeah, impressive here in this orange design here for the rigidity measures, definitely. All right, let's start driving the Ioniq 6N, and here in the normal mode, everything's smooth, everything's silent, but N mode, and then the special button here for the second N button for the sound emulation, and I also have the manual shifting. Let's see how much fun that is and if this is something for petrol heads. Let's go. Leah just wanted to fix her hair. No, you can't do that. Wow, that's something. So you might understand now why Porsche has been getting one of these cars and was taking a deep look into that. Not sure, did you hear on camera? It's like we have this exhaust plop from the plop 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 from the rear. This is crazy. This is crazy. I mean, it's really so well done. Here, shifting down, and it's actually a lot of fun. So honestly, suspension here, the ECS and the N mode is also set in a stiff note. That really feels like driving a petrol car. I can't believe that.
Even as a passenger.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I mean, today we have some rain. Obviously, you see it on the outside. And for testing, that's actually a good thing because you can really, feel what the car is doing. Also with that all-wheel drive, for example. And in the N mode, you also have to be careful because it is then an ESC Sport. And it's a little bit slippery, so you can't actually exaggerate that. But it lets you move the car a little bit more. Wow! And when you shift, you really get a boost basically in the boop. That's crazy. And now you understand why Porsche was getting one of these vehicles and really examining it, and why Porsche will also bring their own adaptation of this technology in the Taycan very soon, because it's really, really well done. It is all done by software, but it has been done so well. Can't believe that, really. It's so refined, you know, it really feels authentic, and I would never have imagined that, you know, because when you're standing still and just rev it in the P mode, wait a minute, isn't that a little bit pathetic or something like that? But then when you start driving it and really test it, it's really so refined that they that they're really so close to the original experience. Of course, not with manual shifting. It's like when you have an automatic one. But then, you know. And you let go of the throttle and you have it plop, 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 plop from the exhaust. That's really something. I mean, if you would close your eyes, could you tell we're an electric vehicle?
No.
It's interesting, right? That's crazy. I mean, it counts for both for driver and passenger. I can't believe that. So and they fine-tuned the system even more. Yes, it was introduced with the Ioniq 5N, and here for the Ioniq 6N, they did even more adaptations, want to make it even more authentic, and I think that's really well done. And you can have a lot of fun, you know. So maybe that, when you say like, hey, I'm missing that a little bit with EVs, there you have it, you know. It is actually possible. It's maybe not something you would use on every single day, every single road you drive. You could, you know, but even if you don't, at least you have the possibility to do so, you know. So, and the sound is actually not pathetic, because in a lot of emulations, hey, even in some combustion engines, the artificial sound sometimes sounds pathetic, but here it doesn't, you know. It really sounds authentic, it feels authentic. Also quite heavy load from the steering, and you just shift back and let go, you know. I can really say throttle here, right?
Yeah, and the seats hold you so tight, it's funny. As a passenger, yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, I mean, as I said, they are not very comfortable because they are really stiff sport seats, so they're nothing for like a long journey, at least not for me. But here for driving in a very sporty way, they are very good because they hold you tight and so on. Oh, that's by the way, I can't do like really test here the like a little bit left and right, because the lane keeping assist, that one is interfering very rapidly and also very harsh. So you can also deactivate that. So if you want to drive in a very sporty way, probably would recommend you to deactivate it, lane keeping assist. Oh nice, we get some sun back now. Yeah, but that's really something here, right? Especially like when you accelerate out, shift down a little bit, then shift up. That's really so much fun, and just that you get an impression of like how different is it. See, if I hold the pedal, then it's doing that in an automatic way. But even then, you have this sound experience. You know, so you can fine tune what exactly we want to have. Here, for example, here. It's doing the shifting itself, and also here the sound and like this, throttle blip basically. But you can also do the shifting yourself, or you can go back to the normal modes. You can even have this sound emulation in the normal driving mode, so it's not 100% bound to the N mode. You can also just drive normally and have that. It's all possible, whatever you want to have, you know. Let's test some.
Does it have a launch control?
It does also have a launch control, yes. Leah is asking for a friend, I guess. So what we can do safely here is to take like some 40 to 80. Let's go. Yeah, that one unleashes.
But it's nice because it's shifting. So it's not so bad for the passenger.
Crazy.
So much fun.
Can't believe
really.
that. Can't
cool.
believe that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is.
Maybe we need that. That's our fun car, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it is loose, but it's also fun, and that's the thing. You know, you're still in control here with the EC Sport. Of course, again, I do not recommend doing anything of that. What I do here when it's a little bit wet, should be very careful with that. But I think they have found a very nice mix, and that's really like when you really pin it down, it unleashes like one more step of this sound emulation. Yeah, it's crazy, and yes, somehow due to the sound emulation and also how the car is acting, it really feels more natural. It feels more combustion engine world alike.
Yeah,
so
it's extreme, but not that extreme because it's shifting.
Yeah, I mean, especially because as a driver, you know what you're doing with your foot. You know,
I hear the sound, so it's a little bit,
Yeah, especially for passengers, it's really helpful to actually get a sense of experience. Like, what is that guy doing at the steering wheel and with the throttle and so on? And you have then the sense, okay, that's what's happening. And this is helping the passengers a lot, actually. Here, the suspension, by the way, is very stiff, especially when you have set it to the N mode. But you feel that it's a good stiff suspension. So it's not, I mean, some suspensions are just super, super rough and that's it. But this one is sporty and good. You feel that. And you can also go back, for example, to the normal driving modes, have Eco, Normal, and Sport. And you can also go back here.
Whoa.
Silence. You can do that at any time. And then the suspension here is also a little bit softer, more forgiving. That's better than for, long-term driving and so on. Such a difference, right? That's just crazy. That's crazy. And that's also what I say about, like, the suspension is sporty, but it's good, and it's not just stiff and rough. So you have also the 20-inch wheels mounted here, yeah, but even here in the very normal mode, you can drive it very well. And it is a sporty ride, but it's at the same time also a very smooth ride. And that's what I love about this car, because we were discussing about pricing and that it's half the price in comparison to a Taycan GTS. But then, of course, the Porsche has options, and this one is full spec, and you don't need any options, maybe one or two options, and that's it. But to a base Taycan, there's only like 20-30K, but then, hey, come on, a well-spec Taycan, and even the base one, then the difference is again maybe 50-60K or something. So, but it's still an expensive vehicle, but it feels very refined, not only from the build quality, what we told you earlier. Yes, we would wish they also offered like a totally animal-free version. Would have been no issue actually at all, because it's just some minor parts here. But the refinement of the materials which they put on the buttons and so on, and also inside the doors, and then how silent the car is, if you like to, when you have all the sporty sound deactivated here, it feels like an extremely refined vehicle. Here also, the steering precision, you feel that it has been tuned on the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And when I'm on the brakes, with the blending and so on, it's very precise, very direct, no dead zone from the steering. So literally, this car has been designed to convince a critical German. Maybe not so with the comfort of the seats. It's also too short for me. It's nothing for tall. This seat is not good for tall people. Can easily say that. But besides that, it's really tuned to convince something. To convince someone like me who has been driving a lot of German cars, also has done like tests on the racetrack and so on, and for someone who has a very fine feeling for the vehicle, and that's what this car is doing. It delivers you an extremely finely tuned and precise experience. That's really cool. And no matter if you have everything in a smooth mode, or if you want to lay it all out and have also the sound activated and so on, and it is a more extreme and more fun experience, definitely. And yeah, if you want that, you can always decide, so you are in the driver's seat literally for all these kind of options, and you're just waiting to attack the next curve. So wow, I'm really impressed here with the driving experience. And once again, that it's not just sporty rough, but it's really refined and smooth, and gotta be kidding me. Wow. It's seriously a Porsche alternative, seriously, because I know that at the beginning of the video, some were maybe like very skeptic about that, and it's like, yeah, a Hyundai for 80,000 euros, and no, you cannot compare a Hyundai to a Porsche, and what is he thinking, and so on. But this is really possible, you can really compare that one here to a Porsche, especially then to a Taycan, also considering the length. It drives so well. And Leah is still having fun.
I ate a lot. a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm fine. Yeah.
We just had lunch,
Yeah.
actually, and a very nice lunch. And that's usually a problem, you know, when you drive very sporty after that. But Leah is still having fun, and this is the ultimate passenger princess stamp for driving in a fun, sporty way and still enjoying it and still having fun. This is really awesome. So, wow, what a pleasant, sporty, fun experience here. You know, I can't just, you know, I can't stop praising the driving experience. And, you know, when it comes to sporty driving, I am very, very skeptical about electric vehicles. Not in general, you know, I love EVs and they are super efficient and have a lot of advantages. But when it comes to sporty driving, there are just a few EVs that are still a lot of fun to drive and that feel so balanced and controlled, you know, and BMW iX3 and the new BMW i3 definitely count to that group. And this one here definitely as well. So one of the very rare EVs out there which you can drive so sporty in such a fun way, passenger have fun, not like getting sick and so on. And also as a driver, you forget this, you know, it's so heavy and so on, you know, because a lot of EVs is to drive it sporty. It's like, you know, it's great in performance, but it's not so much fun because it's just too heavy. But here, this is also a heavy vehicle, but you don't feel that because it's so refined, the suspension is so well tuned. I can go on driving for miles and miles. Yeah, besides my lower back starting you heard because the seats are really stiff. And Motorway. Woo! That was 60 to 100 kilometers an hour. Pretty cool, right? So yeah, it's also a motorway racer, so to speak. Pretty cool. And here at 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, is also extremely stable and silent if you want, because we have the dual insulation, like the lamination in the windows, both front and the rear. And although it's a little bit rainy outside still, it's really very silent. Gotta say that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So that, you know, is a good long-term feature. As I said earlier, of course, the sport seats are not the most comfortable one as for that long-term aspect, but the rest of the comfort here, especially when you go back to the normal driving modes, you can even drive it in eco mode, for example. So this is fine. Then the vehicle is also smooth, and the suspension, yes, it's sporty, but as I said, it's a good sporty suspension. That means it also serves a comfortable aspect, and when you have it in the normal driving mode, it's also a little bit smoother than in comparison to the N mode. So in that respect, it is also a good long-way cruiser. We will then at the end of the episode tell you more about our concise consumption test here for today. But feels really, really refined here on the motorway. And that's also speaking for the car. Definitely super smooth and silent if you like, but also very loud and extreme if you want so on demand. So
some light.
Yeah. Now I can tell like this nightmare horror story. I will kill you. Yeah, why not having some fun here, right? This car is all about the fun, definitely that is, and it drives as good on the motorway as it drives here in the very agile situations. So both a lot of fun and can also be smooth in the city. Of course, it's a long vehicle, so finding a parking spot might be somehow critical. That's maybe the only thing. They also say, by the way, in comparison to the Ioniq 5, they have tuned this car even further. It has a lower center of gravity, it's a little bit stiffer. So they are, of course, similar in the technology, but this one here, you know, turns it a little bit further even. So that's pretty cool. I'm really astonished how silent it is at 100 kilometers an hour. And at some point, of course, we should take it also on the German Autobahn and test it even more so when we are at really, really high speeds than at home. That would be a lot of fun as well. Check out here, lane change at 100 kilometers an hour, normal driving mode, super smooth, very stable. And if I would do so in the N mode, I directly feel how I have more feedback from the road. stiffer. Now when there are some transverse bumps and so on, you feel it even more. But it's still fun and still nice ride, even when the suspension is a little bit stiffer. So a good balance of comfort, I feel. Wow. And the vehicle feels so calm, at least when you put everything to the calm modes. Yeah, it can actually do both. And what do I mean by that? When the vehicle is stiff from the rigidity of the chassis, it brings this sportiness and calmness and confidence. So this vehicle here gives you a lot of confidence. That's pretty cool feeling here. Oh, by the way, just to round everything up, we can of course also set cruise control and assistance systems. This one also has the active steering assist here. Let's see how smooth it does it. There we go. Yeah, some corrections here left and right. Now the motorway is making a slight left bend. Let's see how flawless it's doing that. Yeah, I would say it's fine. So you can also use that here, and you can increase the speed here on the left side of the steering wheel or decrease the speed. That feels really smooth. So also, I think good from the assistance systems. Blind spot monitor is there as well. There's a red triangle in the side mirrors. So the basic, checks from the assistance systems are also there. Price, consumption, what does Porsche want to do, and what do I really think about this vehicle? So as for the pricing, a normal Ioniq 6 would start 46,000 euros. This one here at 76,000 euros. If you add these one or two extras there are, you get it for 80,000 euros. And then you might say, wow, wait a minute. This is like just 20k away from a Porsche Taycan, 25k. However, a Porsche Taycan is always like naked, and then you add some extras and so on. And if you find a comparable Porsche Taycan GTS, for example, which is comparable in the acceleration figure, then it's easily double the price than this one. So yeah, it will be still way cheaper in comparison to a Porsche. And you can compare it to a Porsche because it has such a great driving performance. I was really blown away how good this car is handling. So it's really well done. At the same time, we did the consumption test, 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour on the motorway straight, and you could score some 20 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. 3 miles per kilowatt hour. That is not especially efficient for a sedan electric vehicle. We could score similar figures with the BMW iX3 SUV recently, for example. Would mean for this battery a real range of about 400 kilometers or 250 miles. Not only me, also Porsche was amazed here by the shifting integration of this vehicle and also of the Ioniq 5N. And so they will introduce this emulated shifting in the Porsche Taycan. Very interesting move for sure. And some might not like it, but I have to say you gotta try it, and see that it actually really works. And I wouldn't have expected that. So very interesting driving experience with this one here today. And now it's time to check out other performance EVs.